So in this video, in the next step of implementation of ISO 15189-2022 standard in your laboratory, we are going to see how to perform the gap analysis and what are the actions which are to be required for implementation of this new standard.
Now moving ahead, what you have to do. So once you have undergone a training, now first of all we are speaking about the training of the trainer. So we are speaking about the training of the trainer, training of the supervisors, training of the managers, training of the laboratory director, or training of the other supervisory staff of your laboratory. So once you have undergone the training of ISO 15189 and other relevant documents, and you are aware about the other relevant documents at least, then you have to move ahead. What you have to do, you have to now classify your ISO 15189-2022 as per what are the documentations required, what are the procedures required, what are the processes are required, and what are the records are required. So basically you have to enlist, while before implementing a standard, you have to enlist all the requirements. What are all documentation required? What are all mandatory documentations are required? What procedures are required? What documented procedures are required to be created? What processes are required to be created? And what will be their corresponding records? So you must have a complete list of all these documentation processes. So you should have an appropriate documentation. You must make a list of all these documentation, procedures, process, and records that you will be required in your implementation of this new standard. When it will be possible, it will be only possible if you have a complete awareness and complete training of this new standard. So the first part is the training part, and next part is the making a list of all these procedures and documentation work. So once you are ready, the next step is you have to do a gap analysis. What is meant by gap analysis? Gap analysis is basically you have to see what is your current state and what your meant. So what will be your future state? So current state, here we have ISO 15189-2012. The future state is going to be ISO 15189-2022. So you have to have a gap analysis. Now what is meant by gap analysis? You have to find out what are the key steps to bridge the gap. What are the gaps are there? What were the procedures, policies, and processes were required in the previous standard? Now, what are any new procedures are required? Any new processes are required? What new records are required? What new activities needs to be performed in your laboratory? So you have to have a complete gap analysis of your situation with respect to the previous situation and with respect to the future state what you are going to implement. Now, how you are going to do it? You need to have a conduct a gap analysis. Now, how it can be conducted? So you have to assess the current systems. You must be aware about the current policies of the laboratory, current processes, current procedures, current management systems of your laboratory as per the previous requirement, and you have to see it how you can align it with the new requirement. What are the new requirements we have seen already, because we have made a list of documentation, we have made a list of procedures, we have made a list of processes and records. So during a gap analysis, you will come across what are the extra documentations are required, what are the extra processes needs to be implemented, what are the different new activities you have to undergo, and how it can be implemented. So by doing a gap analysis, you can see what are the current gaps in your management system. Now, who will perform this gap analysis? It is to be done by internal auditor. As I have mentioned, there is a document called ISO 19011, which is with respect to the auditing of the internal management system. So those persons who have knowledge about the auditing of management system, or those persons who are trained in the internal auditing system, these persons must perform the internal audits with respect to the gap analysis. And now where it should be performed, this gap analysis, we have to perform at all the levels. You have to perform at facility levels, at your infrastructure levels, instrumentation level, documentation level, resource level, manpower level, or and at the organizational level. So a gap audit as an internal auditor must be performed at all the levels of your organization. Now, once the gap analysis is performed, you have to focus. While performing the gap analysis, you have to focus on some of the important areas. Now, what are these important areas? One is the risk assessment and patient care. Why we want to focus on these two areas? Because we have seen that this standard has a more focus and more emphasis on risk assessment and is a more concern with respect to the patient safety and patient care. So we have to give a more emphasis while performing a gap analysis. We have to address these two areas mainly with respect to the risk assessment and patient care. The other areas where we should focus are EQA, customer feedback, process control, and equipment. So whether there are any resource requirement are there, where there are any process requirement are there, where there are any management system requirement are there, or where there are any other process requirement with respect to the quality assurance are required. So you have to focus on these areas. So you have to perform a gap analysis by performing an internal auditing of your laboratories and mainly focusing on these areas. Now, once you have identified the gaps, you will come across while performing the gap analysis, you will come across some areas where or which are not in line with the new standard because you are implementing the previous standard ISO 15189-2012. So there will be some areas where which is not as per the new standard. So you will have to identify such gap. You have to identify such gap. Maybe you are not giving more emphasis on risk management in the previous standard, though it was already there in the previous standard also. It was not given that much importance for risk management. So you have to identify such areas which were missed or which are not in line with the new standard. You have to identify such gaps in your management system, and then you have to have an action plan. You have to develop an action plan to align your processes with respect to the new standard. So wherever there are gaps, you have to modify your processes. Maybe you have to redesign your processes, or you have to put some new processes into place which will be in line with the new standard. Now, who is going to perform these things? As I have mentioned, the trainers, the quality managers, laboratory directors, or laboratory managers, supervisors, because they are already trained. The first aspect was train the trainer. So those who are trained, they should perform or they should take over the responsibilities to implement the action plan. So as per the action plan, as per the requirement, whatever new processes, whatever new procedures are created, wherever the procedures were redesigned, new processes are implemented, wherever the processes were modified, you have to revise your quality documents. You must revise the quality document as per the new requirement, because as you can see, there is a complete change in the structure of the standard. So you have to revise the quality documents so that it can be aligned with the new requirement. So this can be done only after finding having appropriate action plan to align with the new standard. Then you have to revise your quality documents. What comes after revising the quality document? You have to train the now, once the trainers have performed their duties, once the trainers or once the supervisors have performed their duties with respect to the revising the documents, with respect to the gap analysis, and after revising the documents, now it is responsibility to train the other technical staff or other laboratory personnel in your laboratory. Whatever new documents are created, whatever the new processes are created, whatever processes are modified, whatever processes are redesigned. So you have to train your subordinates, you have to train your other technical personnel or other staff of your laboratory with respect to the new revised quality documents or with respect to the new revised management system documents. Then all these documents must be authorized and adopted with clear effective date. So you have to put a date from what date you are going to adopt this new document. See, this can be performed only after your all the personals are trained. So once your personals are trained, then you can adopt the new document and you can mark the effectiveness of this document. Then you have to monitor the implementation as a part of continuous quality improvements. So once you have made changes to the management system, you have to monitor the management system processes. So once you have made the changes to the management system, you have to monitor what is the progress of implementation. Wherever the processes are changed, wherever the processes are newly designed, you have to monitor the performance of all those processes as a part of continuous quality improvement. And once you have finished the monitoring, or once you have placed the complete management system in place, then you can have a liaison with the accreditation bodies for the reassessment. See, this liaison with the re-accreditation or accreditation bodies is a voluntary process. So after implementation of this new standard, then you can have a appropriate communication with the accreditation bodies, and you can have a reassessment of your laboratory as per the new standard. So in gap analysis, we are going to emphasize on risk management and patient care. We have to designate a focal person that will lead to the processes, who can establish a system to manage risk and opportunities for improvement. And the personnel also must be ensured that the training and other QMS implementation tools are aligned to the new ISO standards. So once you have performed the gap analysis, you have implemented the process, you should have a appropriate training of a new personnel. So as I have mentioned, once the supervisory work has been done, you need to have an appropriate action plan, and you should have an appropriate focal person who can lead the process of change, because you have to have a transformation from old processes to the new processes in certain areas. It is not necessary to change the processes in all the areas. Since there are certain changes with respect to the new standard, we have to modify certain areas, we have to redesign processes in those areas. So you should have an appropriate focal person who can lead this process change. And after changing the process, you should have appropriate training on the new QMS implementation, because now we have implemented a new management system. The new management system is as per the new standard, which is ISO 15189-2022. So we have to train. The designated person must ensure that all the personnel in your laboratory are trained with respect to the new standard and the new management system.
So in the next videos, we'll be seeing are some of the difficulties, dilemmas which are there for implementation of this new standard. We will be also seeing some other aspect for implementation of this new standard. Till then, keep following and thank you.